Like
Right.
they might not have the same religious views as
Yeah.
you. They might not have the same even like morals or values.
Yeah.
If they can help you in that one area of life, do not discount them. The
Yes.
relationship might
Yeah.
be really fulfilling because they're going to be someone new
Yeah.
outside of your circle.
Yeah.
So that would be my advice is
Super good.
finding people who are interested in the
Yeah.
same things as you.
Welcome to the Next Level Income Show, where it's our goal to take your income, your investments, and your life to the next level. I'm your host, Chris Larson. If you haven't yet, get a copy of our book for free at our website, nextlevelincome.com. That's www.nextlevelincome.com. Just click on the book link, and I'll even send you a copy if you put your address in. On today's show, we welcome back Sarah Weaver. Sarah's an author, speaker, coach, real estate investor, and business owner. She runs 3 businesses that serve both real estate investors and real estate agents. She also travels the country and also the world, coaching real estate agents and hosting intimate retreats for investors. Talk about a dream life. We're going to talk about how Sarah has built this life and how she can help you do the same thing on today's show. Sarah, great to see you again.
You too. You too. It's been too long.
I know, I know. I get to run into you. It seems like about once a year. Um, our audience they heard the intro, but Sarah, what I admire about you is you travel all over the world. So 2 questions: where are you today, and how many countries have you been to?
Great question. I
Yeah,
am calling in from Mexico City. So I
awesome.
just got here last night. I'll be here for a whole month. Which gosh, I just like still pinch myself, Chris. Like I know
Yeah,
that you've known me for years and
yeah.
you're, oh yeah, Sarah's always doing this. But you guys, like I still am so excited to live this life.
Yeah.
And oh gosh, Mexico is my 55th country. I visited
Wow.
55 countries so far.
That's so cool. That's so cool. Well, we're going to dive in today, Sarah, to how you've consciously built this life. And, the next level income listeners, they know that we're all about helping people achieve financial freedom and ultimately helping people live their best life so they can go out and do things. And that could be travel, that could be volunteering, it could just be, getting to like me, travel with my boys to lacrosse tournaments and do certain things like that during this season of life. But tell the
Yes.
audience in how you've gotten to this point, Sarah, and been able to do this.
Yeah, well, I love that you use the word consciously because I think that that's something that's really important about my story is I was
Yeah.
really intentional. I actually had the pleasure of I stopped by my parents' house last week and I have a stack of all of the journals that I've kept over the years. And I've
Yeah.
been using a moleskin journal, that
Oh yeah,
brand
yeah.
specifically, since I was like 14.
Oh, that's so
And
cool.
if I
Yeah.
had to guess, if I put all of them together, it's probably over 10, 12 feet of journals.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, and so one of the best things that I can do is like stop what I'm doing, grab a random journal off the shelf or hopefully hid it away in a box and just flip to some of the pages. And so some of the things that really stuck out to me was, I mean, every quarter, if not even more frequently,
Mm.
I'm writing out like what I want that quarter to look like, what I want my life to look
Yes.
like.
Yes.
And I'm not just saying things like I $3,000 of cash flow per month, which is, by the way, what I said about 5 years ago. And now I'm like, oh, that's cute. Like, that's cute that I wanted 3,000. Because now for
Yeah.
the audience, I have much bigger goals than that.
Yes.
And I hit that years ago, but
Love it.
it was not just saying that I want that, number per month,
Hmm.
but then saying how was I going to get there?
Yeah.
And what was so fun is that I found some paragraphs that were like, I'm going to need, 120 units at, X dollar amount per month. And it's like, no, no, Sarah, it really wasn't that many units. So for the audience, I have 19 units in 4 different states. I'm running half of them as furnished rentals and the other half as long term.
Yeah.
And I'm at about $12,000 a month in pure cash flow.
Awesome. I love that. And, it's what I've heard from our coaching clients, Sarah, is, kind of that 5 figures a month of cash flow is really, it's kind of like a magic number. I mean,
Yeah.
I think, our listeners know my story, but, if you want to, live in, the United States or have flexibility, having 10
Hmm.
grand a month coming in, that's kind of a baseline. I was reading some stats today and, they were 50% of people that make 6 figures a year as a family are living paycheck to paycheck. So, that's kind
Hmm.
of like the buy-in today. And the other
Well,
statistic, sorry, go ahead.
I think the crazier statistic is that 17% of Americans make six figures. And so as I started dating, I was
Mm.
like, oh, like I guess my dating pool is really small. Not that I necessarily care that how much money they make, but it turns out, Chris, that men care how much money I make, and
Yeah,
they don't want to make less than me. And so
that's
it was
interesting,
like,
isn't it? Yeah.
oh, that's not very
Yeah.
many people. But I
Yeah.
think you and I, we live in a bubble because
Yeah.
we probably surround ourselves with
Yeah.
certain types of people.
Yes.
And so when I heard 17%, I was pretty shocked.
Yeah. You know what? You brought up a couple things, and I don't want to pass over some of the I think really important things. So we're gonna back up, and then I want to get back to that because that's really interesting, what you brought up with respect to, not just the dating part, but kind of how you surround yourself with people. But you talked about your journals, and I want to share two things. I'll share my story, and then I want to share a story from a coaching client that I got here in the past week, just because of how important that visualization and the ability to really clarify what you want in life, Sarah. So when we moved, I was just telling you the story about the picture behind me, and we moved into this house
Yeah.
4 years ago. And when we moved in, I was unpacking some things, and I'm kind of a minimalist, as you can tell by my background. I got like nothing, I got a clear desk and another clear desk, so I like to keep things clean. But there's certain things I like to keep. And I saw these journals, and one of the journals was from 2005. And I did it because my wife and and I th we got married in '06. So this was before we got married, and we did one of Tony Robbins' programs. So I
Mm.
had this journal, I wrote down all these things. And one of the things I wrote down was, some of my goals at age 40. And there were income goals and real estate goals. And Tony said, just let your imagination go wild. Put down like what car you want, if you want a helicopter, all this stuff. And I'm not really a car guy, but for some reason, Sarah, I wrote down that I wanted a BMW M5, which
Okay.
if there's car people, listen, that's it's a six-figure sports car. It's really sweet. Big sedan. The one that just came out, 717 horsepower. It's a lot of horsepower. I opened that journal and read that, and I thought, that's weird. Why did I write that down 15 years ago? And guess what was in my garage on my 40th birthday in this house was a BMW M5, and I'd totally forgotten about it. And it had happened. Now that's not, I think that's almost inconsequential compared to some of the other things. But when you're able to visualize and really clarify things, it's very powerful. And to illustrate that, I had a coaching client that I worked with 2 years ago, and he reached out. He goes, Chris, now I'll never forget Sarah. His name's Will, and it took me weeks to get him to send me his 3 year vision. I was like, well, you gotta know where you want to be. And he's like, yeah, but I'm
Yeah.
doing this and doing that. I said, look, just put it down. I was like, you want to tell your mind exactly what you want. And he reached out and he said, Chris, I got to tell you this. And he went through all the things, his net worth, how much money he was making, how happy his wife was, what she was doing, their new child that they were welcoming in, all this stuff. And he goes, and what's crazy, Chris, he goes, I need to thank you because everything that I just shared with you was in my 3 year vision that you had me write down.
Wow.
Yeah.
For those of you not watching this on
Yeah.
video, like I'm getting emotional. And sorry, Chris, it's not over a car or even, this guy
Yeah.
Will, but it's the fact that
Yeah.
this really works.
It does work. Yeah.
And like you've seen it in your life, I've seen it in my life, you've seen it
Yeah.
in Will, and I'm sure
Yeah.
countless other coaching clients.
Yeah.
And I just want to shake people because it's like,
Yeah.
guys, why are you not sitting down? Maybe it takes 20 minutes. I think it takes about 25 to get into like a flow state. Don't worry, guys, I'm not that woo-woo, but I do believe in like setting time
Yeah.
aside for like thinking time. Let's just call it thinking
Yes.
time. There's
Yes.
nothing woo-woo
Absolutely.
about that, okay?
Yeah.
And there's something that happens for 25 minutes. And I think if people just allow themselves to sit down for 45 minutes, so
Yeah.
like instead of hitting next episode on another Netflix episode, which don't get me wrong, I do the same thing. Like just stop what
Yeah.
you're doing and look and write a vision. But then I think there's a really important second part,
Yeah.
which is reading. vivid vision. I had the
Absolutely.
pleasure
Yeah.
of attending an event in 2021. To set the scene, you guys, I had just closed on my fourth or fifth deal, and I was getting really close to my like income goal, my passive income goals. I had quit my job at this point, and I had a
What were
book
you doing then,
proposal
by the
out.
way?
I was actually working for an investor. And
Okay.
so,
Yeah.
funny enough, for those of you listening, I heard a woman on a podcast and I was like, I want to be her. And so, through some very heavy internet stalking, I was able to get on the phone with her. And knowing what I know now, this is like
Yeah.
really amazing because she's not the like warm and fuzzy type.
Yeah.
And I got on the phone with her. I won her over. And then I wrote a business proposal and a job description. And I sent
Love it.
to her. And within 6 weeks, she had hired me. And so I quit my previous job in
Yeah.
recruiting. I actually took a pay cut to work for this woman. And let me tell you, it was like getting on a rocket ship. Like every single
Cool.
day, I was sitting in on coaching calls, do like not necessarily podcast interviews, but doing like community webinars. And I was the one welcoming the guests, warming them up, asking them follow-up questions. So I was building rapport with these people.
Yeah.
I didn't know at the time, but years later, like that would mean so much because then it would open the door when I needed to talk to them again. They'd be like, "Oh,
Yeah.
yes, I remember you, Sarah."
Yeah.
And little did they know is I was, just an employee to this, what I find very impressive investor and very impressive
Yeah.
woman. And so if anyone is looking to like really shake up their life, like I really believe in earn what you learn.
I love that.
And one of the things that happened in 2021 is I attended this event and there
Yeah.
was someone on stage. He's worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And he had like the body fat percentage that he wants. He even talked about his sex life with his wife from stage. Like he has the life that he wants. And
Yeah.
the reason that he was being what could be seen as braggadocious is because you guys, this is no mistake. He's
Yeah.
like, I wrote my vision, my goals,
Yep.
and I read them every day.
Yep.
And when he
Yeah.
said that, I was like, I'm sorry, I don't buy it. You don't read it every day. Like, that's BS. Like, you're this high powered, you got lots of stuff going on. And
Yeah.
also, you've kind of, in my eyes, I'm sitting there in the audience, I'm like, he's kind of made it. So, like, why on earth would he like need to read it every day?
Yeah.
I had a chance of talking to one of his really close friends, and he's like, no, he like actually reads it every day.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, there, mistake number one, because I'm really good at writing my goals. That has been like visionary comes really easy to me. This is something that I've been doing for over a decade, right?
Yeah.
And but how often do I review that vision?
Yeah.
I don't know, once a year,
Yeah.
maybe. Usually it's
Yeah.
like the following year, and then I'm like, or maybe you read it in like October, and you're like, oh shit, I didn't like get what I
I
needed
gotta get to
done. So then
work.
you're
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
then you're like sprinting at the one time of the year where
Yeah.
everybody else is like, I feel like everybody's chilling in like October to December, like they're winding down, and
Yeah.
I was like sprinting. And so
Yeah.
I was like, wow, okay, this guy's on to something. And
Yeah.
I'm not a very routine person. So if anyone listening is also not like, if consistency is your struggle, that I see you. And so I was like, here's what I can do. I can commit to reading it every week. And
Yeah.
so that's what I did.
Love that.
It first started out with a quick list. I leaned over to the guy next to me who's significantly younger than me, and I was like, man, I just don't feel like I'm living up to my potential. And he's incredibly wise. And he said, well, what's your potential?
Yes. There you
So
go.
instead of answering him, I just took pen to paper and I made
Yeah.
this massive bulleted list. And it was big things. It was like secure 10 coaching clients. Didn't have a coaching company. It was make six figures from my design firm. We had one client who paid us, I don't know, 3 grand. And so it was like big goals. And I hit every single goal except for my weight loss goal. That was the only one that just, it continues to be put back on the back burner. But everything else hit it. I wrote, I want to be a guest on a Bigger Pockets podcast because I still had
Yeah.
limiting beliefs that I wasn't going to be on the Bigger Pockets podcast. And little did I know is like I got my book proposal approved or accepted from Bigger Pockets 10 days after writing this list.
Wow. That's awesome. And look, what you just said. it's I can go through other examples, my own examples, coaching clients, friends, people like yourself. That's our formula. I say, hey, look, read your vision at least once a week. Like I like to do it Sunday morning as I plan the week, go through my quarterly goals. And I think the big thing is, and Tony Robbins says this, it's like, did you ever read or hear The Secret? There was a
Yes.
movie and the book and all that. And everybody's like,
Yep.
oh, The Secret, like you said, oh, it's woo woo. But that's only the thing that people forget is that's only a piece of the equation. The second part is massive action. So you got to read it and then
Mm,
you got to go do it. I mean, it's in the Bible. Like
yes.
this isn't, this is not new knowledge, right? So you gotta
Yep.
visualize it. You've got to remind yourself of it. You've got to go out and put all your heart and all your soul into it. The first book my wife gave me was by Paulo Coelho, called The
Mm,
Alchemist. Same message in there. And then I think one part, which you kind of alluded to this, as did I, is having accountability. So having somebody, that can help you and say, hey, listen, you know, here's a shortcut. Or even like my coach, I don't really need his advice necessarily. It's great, but just knowing I've got to report to him is
yep.
important, right?
Yep.
And you have to hack yourself. My son, we went to CrossFit together yesterday, and I asked him, I was like, "Do you know why I go to CrossFit?" He goes, "Because you like it." I go, "No, I go because I don't like it, and the coach makes me do the things that I don't want to do." But I
I
do
love
want to
that.
do those things. I just don't always feel like I want to do them.
Mm.
So I think, again, this is why I wanted to back up a little bit, Sarah, is because, that vision is so important. The action plan is so important. The accountability is so important as well.
And I think you've touched on something really important. I don't know whose idea it was to go to Tony Robbins, but I think you married incredibly well. I think having a partner who's
Yeah.
also interested in personal development and
Yes.
growth is
Yeah.
key.
Yes.
And so there's so many times that I meet couples where they're not on the same page.
Yeah.
Somebody is really into this stuff, like you and
Yeah.
I are clearly into this,
Yeah.
and if you don't have a partner that's subscribed to it, it's really hard
It
to
is.
be
Yeah.
committed because just
Yeah.
like CrossFit, I don't I
Yeah.
don't always want to read my journal every Sunday. Like,
Right.
no, like there's other things that I prefer to do, but I do it because I see the results from when I do it
Yes.
versus what that week looks like when I don't do it.
100%. 100%. I think that's a good segue. And listen, if you're listening and you're like, oh, like how do I do this? Because I think that's a lot of people struggle with this. Shoot me an email, send us an email, coaching@nextlevelincome.com, coaching@nextlevelincome.com, and say, heard you and Sarah on the podcast. Can you send me the template for putting together your vision? And we'll get that over to you. And Sarah, you talked about kind of the dating pool, and it's interesting in society, I'm writing a piece about this for my weekly newsletter, but this is actually a really big problem in Asian countries. So there's
Huge.
yeah, and you probably know better than I do, but there was in China specifically, they had the one child policy, and all these families preferred to have boys instead of girls. So that led to this imbalance. But then it's socially unacceptable to marry down in China and a lot of these countries. So that puts basically half of the population of men in kind of undateable status. And then if you have more men than women, now you have that imbalance as well. It's really challenging. But you talked about the importance of having a partner. I couldn't agree with you more. You have to, if you want to go through life, you have to have a great teammate, a great partner that's
Mhm.
going to, at a minimum, not hold you back, but ultimately support you. I think communication is key on that. But let's kind of take kind of remove it, not just talk about like romantic partners, but what are some steps, Sarah, that you've learned to surround yourself? Because you have these amazing trips you do that I want you to share with the audience, with people. How do you find your tribe? How do you find the people that you can go through life with, not only to support you, but also push you to do better? How do you do that? Are you a high income business owner or professional earning 300,000 or even more a year, but still feel like you're living paycheck to paycheck? Are you comfortable working until you're 65 or 70 to retire? Or do you want to achieve financial independence and live life on your own terms? You could join myself and Matt Ford and learn how we both became financially independent in our early 30s. We will teach you how to make, keep, and grow your money, teaching you strategies to maximize your earnings, keep your income that you've earned through tax strategy and legal structures, and ultimately teach you how to grow it by determining your personal investing strategy, as well as teach you how to analyze investments so you can grow your passive income to the point to live life on your own terms. Our coaching clients reliably do this in 7 years or less. To learn more, check out our coaching program at nextlevelincome.com/coaching. That's nextlevelincome.com/coaching.
Yeah, I think that there's a couple things that people need to think about. One is one person is never going to satisfy all like dimensions of your life.
Yeah.
And so like I have a friend who she's my friend when I'm feeling like nervous to write and offer on a deal. She is a go-getter, ball buster, and she's really good at analyzing numbers.
Yeah.
And so not only does she have the strong mindset, like a just do it attitude,
Yeah.
she also has the know-with-all about analyzing, cap rate, cash on cash, all of these
Yeah.
important things that you do need to look at before just being like, yeah, write a deal.
Yeah.
So she would be the person that I would call about that. Whereas she also makes a lot of money and she spends a lot of money. And so if I was having like I don't know if I should, splurge on this luxury, let's call it,
Yeah.
I'm not going to call her because she's going to convince me to buy
Go so
it.
that's it.
And
There you go.
so,
Yeah.
so I think that I bring that up because I think that people have put a lot of pressure on friendships.
Hmm.
And like my best friend from college is a better friend than I could ever ask for. She's constantly, asking thoughtful questions. She one time, Chris, sent me a congratulations text. I woke up to it. I didn't know what she was congratulating me because she remembered I had a closing that day and I forgot.
Oh, oh,
And so it just
yeah.
goes to show like these are the type of people you want in your life. And
Yeah.
so, but the problem is if I go to her for everything, I'm analyzing
Yeah.
a deal. I had a bad day at work. I need to fire an employee. I had a bad date. I had a
Yeah.
good date. Whatever it is, that's
Yeah.
too much pressure on one person.
Yeah.
They also have their own lives and all these things going on. So I
Yeah.
think that that's the first thing is that everyone listen, you need to have multiple people. And
Yes.
it is always, I think, quality over quantity. But the problem is that I think we put too much pressure on certain relationships. So that's the
Yeah.
first thing.
Yeah.
And then the second is don't be afraid to like audit your friend group. I like to
Yeah.
I like to think of it as asking yourself two questions. Does it feel heavy or does it feel light? So someone that is
Yeah.
always negative, they're always woe is me,
Yeah.
victim mindset, you get off the phone with them, or worse yet, like, a friend's dinner, and you're just like, ugh, like I don't feel good. Like that person is just sucks the fun and the energy and the positivity out of life. And then also like doesn't allow me to cheer for what I have good in my life
Yeah.
because they spent, 25 minutes moaning about something. It feels a little awkward to be like, yes, like I just had my best, revenue month, or I just
Yeah.
sold out my Japan trip, whatever it might be, that feels awkward and frankly inappropriate. So then
Yeah.
you didn't get a chance to celebrate, right?
Yeah.
So that would be an example of heavy. Whereas light is that friend like Bridget, who I'm mentioning, like every single time I talk to her, my world is like lit up, right? Like I'm seeing
Oh.
everything in Technicolor because she's
Oh.
just an awesome person. She like knows the Lord and just loves people and just loves on me better than I could ever imagine.
Yeah.
And so, hello, it's pretty logical. Spend less time with that other person and
Yes.
spend more time with people that make you feel good. It's not
Yes.
rocket science,
Yeah.
yet people feel so guilty, especially women. They're like, oh, I have
Mm.
to, hang out with my sister-in-law, or oh, I have to say yes when my mom asks me this. And
Yeah.
it's like if you don't have like a good relationship with either of those people. I use as an example because I have no sister-in-law and my mom is amazing.
Oh,
So this is not a
that's
dig on
funny.
either of those people in
Yeah.
my life. But if those people are not people, like stop saying yes all the time.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that COVID did teach people that they can say no,
Mm.
but yet I still think people carry around a lot of guilt.
Yeah.
And so that would be my homework for everyone
Yeah.
listening is go and audit your friend group.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be dramatic. You don't need to announce your departure. You can just slowly like hang out with that person less.
Yeah.
There doesn't need to be some blowout, some drama. Just like be more intentional about what you say yes to.
Yeah, that is so good. And I put a lot of thought into this about 10 years ago because I was having some similar issues where I'm like, why am I having these people that are draining in my life and I'm pouring into this? And I was looking here. I was like, how many contacts do I have on my phone? I have 20,041 contacts. And I don't, some of those got to be duplicates. But even cut it in half, right? 10,000 people. Like you can't spend time with 10,000 people. So I
No.
said, okay, like, what can I do? Because I don't want to say no to these people. So here's a technique if you're listening. I call it the
Mm,
circle technique. So you have three circles, okay? And
okay.
you go outside in. So you have your friends. You don't get rid of anybody. These I call them like these are your Facebook friends, okay? So these are
Okay.
your friends that you're connected to. And like I got actually one of my best friends. It's his birthday today, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give him a call here after we hop off. But I send him just a birthday message. Hey, hope things are going well. Catch up with him. Maybe you catch up with him once a year, reach out to him. Number two is your second circle. These are people that, you maybe you have to spend time with. Okay. So it could be family, it could be business associates that, you like being around, but they're not energy taking, but they're also not necessarily energy giving. Or
That's
maybe
good.
there's say a family member that is energy taking. There are issues there, and but you can't just cut them out of your life because you're related to them. So how do you surround yourself with these people that are really going to provide energy and lift you up? So that's your inner circle. And I say these are like the people that you have on speed dial, like your friend was it Gretchen? What was her name?
Bridget.
Bridget, I'm sorry, Bridget. So you're like, okay, how do I spend more time? So what you do is you put those people down, you know, put that circle on your paper, put those people down. And when you say, hey, like I want to go out to dinner, I want to spend time together, you reach out to those people. So when you make your plans, you spend time with them first. You plan out your things. So then when people like I just got invited on this trip and I'm like, well, I want to spend time with my son, for his
Mm.
his break. So I've already made that plan. So I can honestly tell this other friend who I really like, but say, oh, sorry, I already have plans in doing that. So my idea was, hey, if I can focus on my friend group, that inner circle of my friends and family that I really want to spend time with, then you just kind of naturally spend less time with these other
Yes.
people. You don't have to push them out. And that's helped me. And maybe hopefully it's somebody, if you're listening, it can help you spend more quality time and also surround yourself with those people that are going to help achieve your best life.
I love this visualization. And I want to
Yeah.
make sure one thing we haven't touched on is
Yeah.
for the listeners who don't have these good people in their life.
Yeah. Let's talk about that. Yeah.
There's probably people that are like, okay, guys, that's great for like auditing and cutting, but what if
Yeah.
I need to add? And so you asked a great question, like, how
Yeah.
did I find my tribe? And I
Yeah.
think we live in such a great time where we can join webinars and groups and
Mhm.
masterminds, paid or free,
Yeah.
based on our interests. And
Yeah.
so, and especially if you live somewhere, for those of you that don't know, I'm still fully nomadic. I'm traveling full time. So
Yeah.
it's a little hard for me to like join a kickball league or an indoor soccer, which are things I would really like to do when
Yeah.
I do finally live somewhere.
Yeah.
But if you live somewhere, you also can find these groups. So you can go to meetup.com, or
Yeah.
in our case, you can look up like real estate, meetups or
Yeah.
local RIAs. Type
Yes.
investor network. There's a really great one in Des Moines, Iowa. They meet at 7 a.m. on Friday mornings.
Oh, yeah.
And it's so good because it's like these people are serious. Because if they
Yeah.
have a W-2, they're getting
Yep.
there before their job.
Yep.
And if, for someone like me, I'm getting there even though like I could be sleeping in or doing something else. And
Yes.
so like, and how did I find that? I asked, right? When
Yeah.
I started investing in Des Moines, I said, where do investors meet up? Like, is it via Zoom? Is there a meetup? And so, and this is every Friday morning at 7 a.m. And so I just bring that up because I encourage people to look
Yeah.
in your local area
Yeah.
and try to find people based off what you're interested in. And then going back to my first advice, like this person's not going to be your everything, right? Like
Right.
they might not have the same religious views as
Yeah.
you. They might not have the same even like morals or values.
Yeah.
If they can help you in that one area of life, do not discount them. The
Yes.
relationship might
Yeah.
be really fulfilling because they're going to be someone new
Yeah.
outside of your circle.
Yeah.
So that would be my advice is
Super good.
finding people who are interested in the
Yeah.
same things as you.
Super good. And look, if you're listening to a podcast like this podcast, and you're like, well, I want to learn, how can I get a hold of Sarah? Reach out to those people. Say,
Yeah,
hey, how can I, do you have a coaching program or do you have a group that you would suggest? And, we focus on health, wealth, um, social, which could also include family and personal development. So you could have your person or your group for each one of those. So your wealth circle may not be the same as your health circle. It may not be the same as, your spouse, like you were saying, or your partner, right, Sarah? So you may have these different circles. And like I love to travel and take adventure like you do. And my wife doesn't necessarily want to go and camp in the middle of the Grand Canyon for 2.5 weeks, but that's okay. I don't expect that of her, and she has her own thing. So, Sarah, we've talked about, in my opinion, some really important things that the audience can learn from. But I want you to share some details about what you do specifically, who you work with, and if people are interested, how they can work with you.
absolutely. So as I've touched on, I have a small real estate portfolio.
Yeah.
And Rose, we're talking off air about how excited I am for kind of the next, to use your company name, really the
Yeah.
next level of my investing.
Yeah.
But really the last 2, 3 years, I've been focusing on two things, building community and connection. And because
Love
travel
it.
is such an important part of my life, it made sense that that like naturally got sprinkled in there. And so I started a company called the Mentorship Program, and it's where I take real estate investors, mostly buy and hold investors. We have a few flippers. We have people that do syndications, like from a limited partner standpoint, but most of them join my program because they, like me, want to own long distance real estate, whether it be a midterm rental or a short term rental or a long term rental. And so I think it's really important that you are having your questions answered in real time because
Yeah.
people are so scared to buy in places that they don't live. Because
Yeah.
what if you buy a bad deal? And
Yeah.
so my solution to that challenge is bringing real estate investors into my community. And then oftentimes I'm handing them a deal on a platter. Quite literally, I'm handing them a deal or I'm introducing them to an agent, and I'm introducing them to a lender, or I'm introducing them to a private money lender or a hard money lender. And so I have people join the program that they may own a rental in their neighborhood or their backyard or their market, but they've never bought abroad, or I mean out of sorry, long distance out of state.
Yeah.
Um, and I have someone that had went from 0 to 7 units in 4 months. And his
Awesome.
most recent deal was
Yeah.
one that I got sent because my friend and agent wanted me to buy it. And I'm like, if Paul will buy it, I'm going to send it to him.
Yeah.
But if he says no, call me back immediately because I want it.
Yeah.
And so not to my surprise, I was very proud of Paul. He of course wrote the offer, and it was a fully turnkey furnished midterm rental with a displaced insurance policy holder already in place,
Oh,
and
wow.
it cash
Nice.
flowed on day one.
That's awesome.
And
Yeah.
and so that's the kind of hand holding and like, deals
Yeah.
that they're getting when they join my program.
Yeah.
But what I find, Chris, is that everyone, yeah, yeah, real estate's cool, but I want to travel.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I started another arm to the business called
Yeah.
Invested Adventures,
I
where I
love
take
that. Yeah.
real estate investors on epic trips around the world. And it's funny, I haven't even told you, but you mentioned earlier how much you like hiking. And
Yeah.
so I actually am taking a group to hike Kilimanjaro in
I saw
July.
that. I
And
knew I
oh,
was
I
I was scoping out your trips coming up
oh,
here.
so
And
audience, if you guys can
yeah.
slide into Chris's DMs and peer pressure him to hike Kilimanjaro in July, I think that we can do it. Oh, and
I
so
love it.
Kilimanjaro is an
Yeah.
example. We're doing a 9-day African safari the week before. I'm taking
Amazing.
6 investors to Japan for a 9-day food tour where we'll eat
Cool.
Michelin star restaurants and
Oh, amazing.
outstanding food and sake and green
Yeah.
tea and
Mm.
tour Japan, which is an amazing country. And most importantly,
Yeah.
all of the trips that I just explained, you're sitting next to someone that likes the same thing that you do. Like, talk about
Yeah.
building your tribe.
Yeah.
It's funny for those of you that
Yeah.
are watching on video, you may have caught my eyes. A friend just delivered me a coffee. Her and I met hiking Kilimanjaro last
Oh, that's
summer.
so
She's a
cool.
real estate
Yeah.
investor, and she invited me to Mexico City. And so we are actually traveling together for the next few weeks. And we met at one, I joke
Yeah.
she's a client turned friend. And that's what happens on these
Yeah.
trips is meet people that get it, right? Like I think we're
Yeah.
constantly looking for people that get it.
Yes.
And the people that come on invested adventures, they see that this is a bucket list adventure that can be a tax write-off,
Yeah.
which
Nothing
I
wrong with
think is
that. Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
And then also you're going to be surrounded by people where you can actually ask the questions like, okay, Chris, like I'm interested in syndications, but how
Yeah.
do I know if it's a good deal? Or
Right.
hey, Sarah, I'm interested in midterm rentals, but how do I know that it's not going to be vacant? Well, then you get
Yeah.
to sit with me for 2 hours as we ride into the Serengeti and look for lions, and I'll answer every question that you have. So
Yeah.
people leave and immediately take action. So actually, I woke up to a text this morning. I just hosted 16 investors in a 17-bedroom mansion in Nashville,
Cool.
and one of them went under contract, and it hasn't even been a week. And
That's
that's the kind of
awesome.
stuff that happens because you're so
Yeah.
fired up by hanging out with people.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that. And to your point, Sarah, do things with people that enjoy doing the same things that you do, that have the same interests. And that's what's beautiful is, business and friendship. And I tell people, at some point, everything you do is basically a business expense because you're doing business with your friends and you're
Yes.
taking trips and you're doing things. Real estate is a great business because there's real estate everywhere and there's always stuff to do. So if people want to learn more about these trips, working with you, your coaching program, you got so many cool things. I got your website pulled
Thank
up right
you.
now. What's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Absolutely. So my website is Sarah D. Weaver, and then really everything online is Sarah D. Weaver. So if you're serious about taking action, or you have a question about even like, hey Sarah, I've been interested in journaling, but I feel like a bozo when I do it. How to do it?
Yeah,
Send me an Instagram message. I would love to hear from you guys. I am just a girl. You heard from this story. Like I got one of my dream jobs simply by reaching out to someone from a
yeah,
podcast. So I hope if you're listening and you're interested in anything that Chris and I've talked about today, reach out. My Instagram is Sarah D. Weaver, and then my email is hello@sarah-d-weaver.com.
perfect. And we'll have all this in the show notes. And just a girl, just like No Doubt. That song's playing through my head right now, Sarah. We're right before Christmas here, so I hope you have an amazing Christmas, an amazing New Year. It's a great time of year to put together your vision for your future
Absolutely.
life. So check out sarahdweaver.com. Reach out to us if you need help putting that vision together, like I said. And Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to you and the audience. And thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and experiences with us today, Sarah. Hey, Chris here again. I hope you found this episode valuable. Now, I have one more thing to gift you. We have a page for my coaching clients where you can get a free copy of my book, as well as much more from previous guests on the show. Just check out nextlevelincome.com/coaching to get a free copy of my book, audiobook, and much more. I'll send you a copy of my book and cover all the shipping costs as a thank you for listening to the podcast. Also, please like, share, and take just 90 seconds to give us a rating on Apple Podcasts.